Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I'm recording this at 10 p.m. I didn't want to start this little review video, but not a review video, this late, but I spent the last hour going back through some of the recordings I had, specifically the one I recorded of the ending and with all the what happened to everybody that you get to see before the credits, just to refresh myself. I literally made a notepad list on my computer of every character and what job they end up with and what my thoughts are on that, because for the realization stuff, because I knew I'd want to talk about it. I've spent the past I don't know, hour prepping for this. I feel like I'm nervous and sad. I'm nervous, kind of discombobulated, maybe a little overwhelmed. I don't know, because I have too many pages of different notes that I started writing for this. Last night, I finished my second playthrough. And I stayed up, it was at 2 a.m. and then I stayed up till 3:30. I sat in the dark by my window writing all these notes that I couldn't read at the time, but they came out legible, of just things I knew I was gonna forget about. I didn't plan that. I was gonna go to bed, and then I started thinking about the stuff with the toilet and the realization stuff and how the narrator makes fun of him, and I thought I want to remember to talk about that. And then I ended up handwriting 3 pages of just various things to talk about, and then I started writing a bunch of lists on my phone of some of my thoughts on the music, and I have a list that starts of the beginning of the data decks or whatever, and then it went into my favorites and my thoughts on them a little bit, and then I have another list that's just characters that I got to know a bit, that I actually took the time to know in my second playthrough, that I had opinions on or whatever, that I feel like I can give an opinion on. Okay, and I feel a little sad too, because I got so fucking into this game. It's crazy to me still, way more intensely and faster than I do normally when I get really focused into a game or hyperfixate on something or whatever. It's crazy because I got the demo almost right away. Even before that, I had known about the game and I was excited for it. I play a lot of or not a lot of parody dating sims and stuff, and I thought a game where you date objects and it's a comedy, that is right up my alley. But even then, I always like the ones where it's they make jinkas of characters or whatever. I've always thought that's really cool, so I was probably the target audience for this game no matter what. So then I got the demo and I loved it, and I put 10 hours into it, and I made sure to go and meet every character I possibly could and get as much out of that demo as possible. And then I did my first playthrough, which was 50 hours, and I recorded that. And then I found out there's a new game plus, and my original thought with that second playthrough, because I only did 2, was just oh, I have maxed out, I want to max out my charm stat so I can realize everybody at the end, and I'm just gonna have this be for me, for fun. I'm not gonna record it. I'm gonna pick all the goofy options or whatever. And then I literally the next day I started the new game plus playthrough, because I was just still constantly thinking about the game or whatever, and I had the time for it, and that ended up being actually, I don't know how long. I still have Steam open. I'm downloading something else right now, but I can literally check. Steam says I put a total of 142.4 hours into this, but that's a lie because I left the game on a lot. But I did end up with 80% of the achievements, and my second playthrough was interesting because I ended up just starting it for fun, of okay, I want to redate some of my favorites, and there were some characters I thought I wanted to romance that I got friend zoned originally, and others that I romanced that I wanted to be friends with. And then I started getting all these love endings, and I was oh, this is actually going pretty good. And the game's weird where it's part of the thing is you can get like a hate ending with anyone, or friendship or romance or whatever, and the game's not supposed to judge you on it, which is true, and they all have their own unique dialogue and whatever. But I feel like with the romance routes, it feels like you get a bit more dialogue. Like you literally get like an extra line or two or whatever of dialogue with the realization part with the credits and stuff, where it's always like, oh, so and so, like they always make sure to come back and see you, or you get to see them again, or they send you something cool or whatever and acknowledge your existence, except for two of the characters. And I notice you only really get that with the romance stuff. Like if it's characters you friend, the like narrator dialogue is still the same, but like it doesn't have those extra lines. And I thought, damn. Or even just like I feel like you get more options for things, or more dialogue in general and stuff. I mean, I guess that makes sense of like, of course the characters will treat you better if they're like your lovers rather than your friends. But I find that interesting. But that was part of the reason I wanted to do like it's called Mate Everything is the achievement, where you get all the love endings in one playthrough. So that's just what my second playthrough turned into, and it wasn't like that immediately. It just eventually turned into that. And then it got kind of stressful towards the end, where I was picking very specific options and I wasn't really picking the ones I wanted, but I was like determined to do this. And there was actually two characters I ended up getting friends with, and I had to reload my save. I made like 1 billion saves on my second playthrough just in case I messed up, and then I didn't really have to use any of them. But it worked out great, because the thing is, if you get with the romance stuff, you romance everyone and whatever, and you like technically don't get to meet Reggie, and then Skylar is, because if it's a romance route, I think it's like Skylar introduces you to Reggie. If it's a friendship thing, it's Dorian. And Reggie is like pissed that you did like not pissed, but like, oh, you really got everyone to love you, huh? That's silly. And then he gives you this quiz about like specific things related to the datables. I only forgot like one of the answers. It's only like 3 questions. It's pretty easy. And then he ends up falling in love with you, but is like confused about it. But then Skylar ends up loving you more, I think, based on like her dialogue and stuff. And she does this thing too. It even gets you a collectible where it's like this gun or whatever, not like an actual gun. No, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna see if you cheated or like reloaded your save or whatever. I mean, I had multiple saves. I wasn't bouncing around between them. It was mostly like towards the end, once I started realizing characters, it was a like, okay, just in case I screw up, not with the characters themselves, but if you realize enough people, you're able to get the tinfoil guy and David Most like back together as a couple, and it kind of feels like a true ending sort of thing. And I knew that was an achievement somehow, and I was like, okay, let me just get this too. So it was mostly for that, to make sure I didn't like mess up any of the lines, you know, that to make sure I can get them together at the end. But it was also a lot of saves of just like specific parts of the game, like specific parts of the story I wanted to play through again or whatever. I just wish you could like label like if you could just name the saves somehow. I know that's not normally a thing, but that would have been like really helpful, because I'm used to with other games with the saves where it'll have like a picture or something, or like a little bit more info, but it just has like, okay, here's the amount of characters you've met and here's how many you've realized. But if you're just going around like talking to people and doing their routes, it's like those numbers don't change. So then very quickly it's like all the saves start looking the same, except for like whatever day you're on. But like that doesn't help me when I'm like 150 days in or whatever. That's usually the number I got to, was like 150, I think, on both playthroughs. So I'm probably gonna have to delete those saves, but I kind of just reloaded twice. Or if it was like I talked to someone and I didn't want to waste a heart. But doing that, like, mate everything, that feels weird calling that. I'm gonna call it like the romance run or whatever. Doing that for all the characters was actually kind of nice, because in my first playthrough I I had I had like 5 characters hate me. I didn't have enough candies in a specific stat, so then I left 2 of them behind as like objects, and then there was like 10 characters. I only got to like 90 realized datables or whatever at the end because the stupid charm thing wasn't working. Like this, I met all the characters, but I wasn't getting the points. And then when I started my second playthrough, it gave me those points back as I met people for that stat. And then it was still funky where the game didn't technically count it. And I was like, oh shit, not again. I want to see what these characters' endings are. And then I found out if you just go before you talk to those characters and try to realize them, for me it was the ones with like the charm stat at like 100 or whatever for the realization thing. If you like check your specs list and then talk to the characters, it like temporarily fixes it. So I kept having to do that. But it worked. I got them all realized, and it's nice. I got like the achievement for that, for getting them all out of your house. I like this, just called Empty Nest, and then the one for romancing everyone. That felt so good. Like I felt like a weight has been lifted once I got that one of like, okay, I can just chat with whoever's left and not have to worry too much. It gets kind of stressful when you're like trying to get a specific ending or a specific thing or whatever, and then it's like, okay, you're trying to follow a guide. Oh, I wanted to talk about that actually. For the because I can't call this a review video. I know I always call mine like my thoughts or whatever, and I'm doing that for this too. I feel like I can't give this game like a proper full-on review unless I did like the hate, friendship, love routes with like every single character. Originally I thought about doing one for friendship, but then I was romancing my favorites anyway, and then romancing everyone was nice because I feel like it made the dialogue nicer, and it made me kind of like certain characters more, like they kind of softened more a bit. But friendship would have been cool too. The all hate ending or whatever, the hate everything, there's no way in hell I would ever do that, because there's some characters I just like too much, or they're just really genuinely like good-hearted people, and I know it's a video game and it's not real and it's for an achievement, whatever. I don't like being mean to fictional characters as a whole, but it's like I can't do it. I can't break some of these people. For some of the characters it would be kind of funny, and I would absolutely be fine having beef with them, but there's some that I just like. Barry as an example is very it's like very nice and everything, or like Mateo is another where they're just like genuinely good people. I can't do a hate ending with them. So I'm not gonna get all the achievements or whatever, but I consider myself like I've done what I wanted to do and stuff that I feel like I can, because I feel like with just the first playthrough it's like you're kind of navigating it and getting your first impressions of these characters, but I feel like with the second playthrough as a whole, it's like because I know some of the plot twists and whatever, I'm kind of paying more attention to the dialogue, but I'm also kind of more chill with stuff. It's like, okay, I already know who these characters are for the ones with like the plot twists and other things. It kind of made me appreciate their stories more. There's like at least 3 different characters, I believe, where you have to like go around. No, 4. There's 4 characters you have to go around talking to like the different tables in your house and whatever, and it gives you different conversations, and if you get them all, then you can get a romance ending. So for those characters you have to like fucking work on it and stuff. And it didn't even fucking click to me that was a thing. My first playthrough, and I thought about it towards the end, I was like, nah, I'm good, and I regret that, and I'm so glad I did it with this playthrough. That was nice, because you have to do it with your doors and your windows and your tables, surprisingly not your chairs, and with your like curtains and stuff. So it's like a lot of times you have to talk to these characters. For one of them, it's like 17 times. It gets kind of crazy. With that mechanic as a whole, for some characters it was really fun, or it gave me more depth into like who they are and stuff, and I'm so glad I did it. And then for others I was like, oh my gosh, this is taking so fucking long. So it really just depends. Hold on, where's my other, sorry, I have my notes spread everywhere for this. What else? I'm trying to go over like general things, and then I want to talk about the music, and then the bulk. This video is probably gonna be like 3 hours or some shit, just of me giving my opinions about these characters, and some of it is gonna be probably like 2 sentences about someone, and some is gonna be an entire paragraph's worth. We're gonna see. What was I gonna say? But yeah, doing the romance stuff was nice. I didn't actually get the achievement where you're like physical with everyone, which isn't just like sexy times things. It's like you give them a hug or a kiss or whatever. I did that for all of them when they were realized, just because I thought it would be nicer, but I should have done that in the furniture forms too. But I feel like that I didn't want to go through that of like that would make the game longer. I just didn't feel like it. Maybe I should have, I don't know. But the romance dialogue for a lot of them is like really sweet, even for the ones you wouldn't expect to be sweet, if that makes sense. So that was pretty cool. This game's also weird too, like with dating sims, you know, I normally don't really take them super seriously unless it's like a very serious story or whatever, or I usually view them as just like the characters are characters and I'm attached to them as characters and whatever, but the characters in this game just impacted me more. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like they felt more like real people, like people I would like meet out on the street or whatever, rather than like with other dating sims I played. I think the art style kind of helped with that too. Not that I like, I don't know, I'll say as an example, only play like the ones with the anime characters or whatever. And usually I play like the parody dating sims or something. Like I played the pigeon dating sim, for example, which is actually one of my favorites. You know, I thought the art style for this game was really cool. A lot of the characters feel, I don't want to say sort of similar, that's not true. I keep thinking about the eyes for some reason. And then some of them are in like completely different art styles than others, which is kind of interesting, and that also changes with like the realization designs and stuff. But that was cool. I loved the diversity of stuff in the game between like, I don't know, like different body types, genders. This game is so like open and welcoming and stuff. I think that's really cool. What was I going to say? I don't remember. I should have had like I guess I technically have a script for this. I know I'm just fucking babbling at this point. But yeah, the character designs were all really cool. The fucking voice acting though, I know that's like, I feel like the 2 big selling points of this game, I guess, besides like haha date furniture and whatever, is that it being like an open sandbox game. There's 100 characters to date. I've never played a game where you can date 100 characters. But in this one you can, technically 102. Oh yeah, I didn't buy the DLC, so I technically haven't met everyone. I'm just, this entire like my thoughts thing is just solely on the base game. I don't want to, I've heard the DLC characters are cool, or at least one of them is really, really well liked, but I finished the game. I'm not going to buy the DLC to play it again. Maybe I'll watch like a playthrough of those characters, like routes and stuff though. Sorry. But yeah, the fact that there's 100 characters, that's really cool, because you're not gonna like everyone. I mean, okay, like, as characters matching their objects and whatever, and once I got the endings and you kick everyone out of the house, then I was like, yeah, I like them all. Like, okay, no, like, gameplay wise, there's definitely some that I hate, and I just mean like the act of doing the route. And there's some definitely personality wise I don't really like, but I don't think I absolutely like loathe anyone. Let me think about that, actually. I think the character I disliked the most was probably the rock goddess, because her route is about like you having to praise her and stuff. I didn't really like how preachy the air fryer was. I didn't like Abel because of his like whole thing of not letting people help him, and he's kind of weird about it. Those are the ones I can think of like off the top of my head. I will be like at some point in this like talking about every single character. Like, I have notes for a couple, but I literally have the wiki pulled up on my phone where I'm going to be going through, clicking through different characters, so I feel like I need a visual as I'm talking about all of these. But yeah, I definitely have at least like 10 to 15 absolute like favorites, and then everyone else I like to some degree is the best way I could describe it. And having that of like you have like over 100 people you can date, I think that's pretty cool. You know, oh yeah, because sorry. Voice acting is like the other big selling point. I've heard a lot of people with this game, they'll buy it for like a specific voice actor or whatever. I recognized just from listening to the voices, maybe like, okay, there was like two or three I recognized like as soon as the character opened their mouth, and maybe like 5 I sort of knew. I don't know. I mean, it's probably because like the other actors and stuff, of course, they play characters differently. There's probably a whole bunch in here I would not be surprised where if I heard them as a specific character in something else, I'd be like, oh, they played this character and then this character in the furniture dating sim or whatever. Like, I know the game, like the data decks has like in the profiles like, oh, they're voiced by this person or whatever. I purposely did not check that in like any of my playthroughs, I think, just because I was kind of worried about that. You know, when you'll associate someone with a specific character or whatever, I feel like if I knew, and if it was someone I recognized, or like if I knew them for a specific character or whatever, or if I decided like, oh, this person sounds cool, let me see what else they've been into while I've been playing the game, I feel like that would have taken me out of the immersion of it. Like, now that I finished the game, I'm absolutely like, yeah, I want to know who a lot of these people are and stuff. But I feel like that would kind of take the immersion out of it for me, of focusing like, oh, it's like this character that I'm talking to or whatever. But all of the voice actors did great for these characters and everything. Some of them sounded like, looking at the character designs, not how I expected them to sound, which was kind of funny. Let me see. I have a list on here of just it's one of those like how to find all the characters and stuff, but it just has them listed by name. But that kind of helps me to like look at the names at a glance, and it makes it easier for what I'm talking about, even though they're all like numbered correctly and everything. But yeah, all the voice acting was good and stuff. I think that was the thing for me with this game that I was impressed with the most. Just the freaking fact that like every single line, if I remember correctly, is voiced by someone. And I mean by that, of course, like the characters when they're like the datables that you're talking to and stuff, but also like the narrator and even just random other characters you meet. There's like all the people, like the humans in your phone, like Sam, or like the AI that takes your job, and the stuff with like tinfoil hat, even like Tom or whatever, who you maybe have like 5 conversations with and stuff. Like everything is voiced. And that honestly just I think that helped with me saying like, oh yeah, the characters feel like real people more than like other dating sims. I think just being forced not only to like read stuff on a screen, but actually hear everyone and the emotion in their voices, I think just really made the whole thing feel more alive. It makes me wonder, now that I think about it, sit here and think about it, if the game wasn't voice acted at all and I was just reading stuff for the characters, would I have been as emotionally attached? I don't know, because there was definitely some times where like the characters, I don't know, sounded vulnerable or like pissed off or whatever, or where there was parts where there was like a lot of emotion or something and the acting really sold me on it and stuff, and it just made those moments hit like so much more harder and stuff. And then of course that leads me to care about the characters more, so I think about that too. But that's the thing I'm most impressed about. Well, that's one of the things. What else? Oh, the music, definitely. Like, I felt kind of bad during my first playthrough. I think just because I was recording and I was going through dialogue, I didn't have the volume on my speaker very high. I didn't want to be caught by the microphone, but also I feel like sometimes the music in this game was hard for me to hear, where it's like the characters mostly sound loud enough. There was sometimes where the lines felt like they were like too quiet no matter how high I had the speaker on. Maybe that was on purpose. Or sometimes I noticed the text box would say something, and then whether I waited or not, the voice line just, I think sometimes wasn't there, and it threw me off, and I'd sit there and I'd wait, and because sometimes it was delayed. I mean, I wasn't clicking like insanely fast or anything, except for the end of my second playthrough when I was trying to rush through all the realization dialogue. But that was kind of weird. But yeah, the voices would be fine or sometimes too loud, and then the music would be kind of soft. Like, there's a couple characters where for sure, no matter where I had the volume, even if the volume was low, I could always hear the musical theme. But for a lot of characters, I couldn't. I think it was mostly like the themes that were very like peppy and kind of loud or whatever. So that was a little disappointing during my first playthrough. So during my second one, I was focused on like, I would sometimes just pause between the text boxes or whatever, and I would kind of turn up the volume more, and I would sit there for like a second and listen. I didn't do that for all of them. I did that for like a good amount though, and that was kind of nice. I think that helped me kind of get in the mood, because there is definitely some characters where it's like, if I hear their musical theme and I'm not playing the game or whatever, like it pops up on YouTube or something, I will immediately go to think of that character, and that's awesome. I started listening to the soundtrack on Spotify. I've kind of been doing a lot of painting, so I've been listening to it as I've been painting outside. The only thing that's a bummer with Spotify on your phone is it doesn't like play everything from like an album. Sometimes it goes to other stuff, so unless I was on YouTube, I couldn't control it was kind of like randomized, really. So I feel bad kind of recording this because I didn't listen to all the musical themes before I started recording this video. But I have some notes. I would love to give my opinion for all of them, but I don't. But that's okay. There was some that I ended up stumbling on that I fell in love with immediately, and it was kind of funny because it was for characters I didn't even like, and then I'm like, damn, this theme is good. But I think the music's fun. Hold on, let me see. The music that plays in your house, I like how it's for like different times of day. I always think that's so cool in games. Like Animal Crossing does that as well, and it always sounds so like chill and mellow, and I feel like that's nice because it's a weird feeling when you go from like you're talking to your furniture, which because they have the humanized design, the the human design for furniture and stuff is the whole thing with this game. A lot of the time I forgot, like, yeah, I'm talking to my chair or whatever until they'd mention about like having 4 legs or being like made out of steel or whatever, but it didn't happen a lot. I mostly noticed that with like the realization dialogue. What was I going to say? But yeah, I'd forget about that, and then you're talking to all these characters and getting so absorbed in their world, and then you take off the glasses, and then the lighting's a little different. You literally don't have the rose-colored glasses at that point, and it's just you and just normal ass furniture and stuff. Like, I'd walk past it and be like, oh, it's like, this is how I go talk to this character. I wouldn't think like, oh, here's the character in front of me or whatever. It's like you take off the glasses and I'm just like, this is just a normal house. And the house looks sad looking a lot of the game, where it doesn't have like, depending on who you talk to, like the plants on the wall or like the decorations and stuff. It feels like there's no personality to it. Like, it's just kind of like, okay, here's the furniture, you need to survive and stuff. And it feels a little sad walking around the house like that, or like at the end of the game when all the furniture is all shiny and gold because you realized everyone, and then your house, it dawns on you like the house is truly empty at this point. But it's interesting, like, because the music will be really chill and you just walk around this kind of empty house. I always felt kind of weird with it, especially when it was like when I wasn't running around the house trying to find characters, when it's like nighttime and you run out of charges and you have to walk from whatever room you're in or even outside at the neighbor's house back to go to bed and then start the next day over. So the music was kind of nice, that it was just chill. It never felt like it matched that, or I felt like it did kind of match that kind of like sad feeling of like walking around the house. I don't know, kind of lonely despite the fact that you have like 100 roommates or whatever. And then the title theme's pretty fun. There was a song in the credits, I remember it was sung. I didn't actually listen to the whole thing, or I probably did in my first playthrough, but that was good. There's a lot of times where characters sing, or not a lot of times, there's maybe like 3 times, and that was cool, where they like sing a song for you, like Miranda gets one. I was hoping the song was going to be in Spanish. I got excited and it wasn't, but I can't remember how it sounded off the top of my head, because I picked the dialogue option about like, write a happy romance song, but it was good. And then Bodhi has like this 80s power ballad about romance, and that was really cool too. Okay, I want to talk about specific character themes, at least of ones I've heard of. A lot of the music has like a early 2000s vibe to it. I don't really know how to explain it, but let me see. And I don't have everyone's theme listed on here, just the ones that I've listened to that I stumbled upon on Spotify. So Faria's, there's like two that remind me, two different character themes that remind me of the Persona series. Faria's reminds me of like any of the like kind of, not peppy, I was gonna say, I can't remember how it sounds like off the top of my head, damn, but it reminds me of like daytime music in a Persona game. And then Eddie's, I don't remember how Volts sound because they're supposed to sound similar, but Eddie's I remember I listened to a lot because it also reminded me of Persona, but it reminded me of like nighttime in Persona games, just kind of very chill and stuff. It's kind of funny with the music. I sent some of the themes I really, really liked to one of my friends who hasn't played the game yet. And just based off the music. And also, I love that the titles are all, like, they're titles, but they relate to whatever the object is and stuff. Either the object itself or, like, their role or something. And then the music matches with that character and whatever, so you have like a wide variety of like different types of music in here. It like genres and stuff. It's really cool, and it's kind of was fun listening to music, some of it after I went through my first playthrough, because that's when I started, because then it's just like, oh, I know how this music connects to their story or this character's like feelings or whatever. It was really cool. I usually don't listen to soundtracks until after I finish a game, because a lot of the time titles can be spoilers, but all the titles were fine from what I remember. So I still have to listen to the Spotify playlist. I'm also in the process of drawing some of the characters in my sketchbook too, so if the internet on my computer decides to work, that's going to be a thing I do. So I'm excited for that. Let me see. Timothy's and Teddy's both make me think of Super Mario Galaxy. Timothy's, maybe it's all the like the bells and whistles of it and whatever, and how I think it's just how playful it sounds. It reminds me of like some of the really peppier, like kind of wacky levels in Super Mario Galaxy. I was thinking about, for some reason, there's one where you're like in a bedroom, but you're on like a magic floating train or something. It was like a toy train level, or might not have been a train. It was like a toy themed level, I think, in Super Mario Galaxy. It made me think of that, or maybe just some of the like overworld themes in Mario. I don't know. It makes me think of Galaxy, but just Mario in general. And then Teddy's, I think because it's very gentle, makes me think of like the Rosalina storybook music in Galaxy, and it was always very relaxing to listen to too. I really liked that. And then another general thing about the music as well is, and I still have to keep listening to it for the others, is it'll have the actual like objects as like a sound or an instrument within the theme, which is cool, and also reminds me like, oh yeah, this is a theme for like a door or whatever. Like I remember Dorian's having like, I don't remember what, there was like 4 different kinds of door sounds or whatever. Let me see. Skylar's is very peppy and fun, and I know sometimes was it also the main theme? I think it was the same. I don't remember, because it kept sounding familiar whenever it would pop up. It gives like a very like 2000s feel. It's like very peppy and fun. Let me see what else. Tina's theme so far has been my favorite, which I feel kind of bad about. Okay, the thing with Tina is she's the one... No. It's her and Benoit's. It's those two. I didn't do the storylines in either route. I used a content... Okay, no, for Benoit, I used a content skip both times, so I don't really know that storyline except for a couple things I've heard. And then for Tina's, I got a hate ending with her in my first playthrough, so I got through like barely any of her route. And then the second playthrough, because at that point I was going for a romance thing, I used the content skip or whatever, which I slightly regret. I'll get to that in a bit when I talk about the characters. But yeah, Tina's music theme is easily my favorite, and then I didn't really get to hear it in the game because it's the saxophone and it just goes so hard. It's so good. It's very kind of jazzy. It sounds like sexy or whatever. It was like, hold on, I'm gonna have to pull up Discord because I want to read the comments that my friend wrote. I thought it was kind of funny. Let me see, because he guessed correctly about the because I sent him the themes for Beverly, Tina's, and Eddie's, and he actually correctly guessed what the objects were, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, Eddie's is literally just called Closing Hours Eddie's theme. That doesn't give a context to like, yeah, that's the musical theme for a breaker box or whatever. Tina's he described as like a suave character who is ready to romance theme, and I was like, that's half right. Not really like suave, but is definitely ready to romance. And then he assumed that Beverly was a cup because, and I didn't even notice it with her theme. I'll have to listen to it later. There's like straw slurping noises, and I was like, nope, she's a mini bar. And then Eddie's he got completely right, because he just labeled it as, let's see, listening to Eddie's, really loving how chill this sounds, like late night hanging out at a bar feel. And I was like, you got that perfectly. But that's the cool thing with the music, is it like it matches really well. Of like, you can listen to it and you kind of just already know the characters' vibes and stuff. And I love that everyone has their own musical theme. What else? But my favorite track in the whole game, that's not like character themes and stuff, is Key's like piano concerto. It is so good. Oh my god. I mean, I've done her route twice, because, you know, the two placers or whatever, and I've sat through the whole thing. I think it's either like 4 to 8 minutes or something. It's pretty long, but yeah, I sit through the whole thing. I don't even look at the screen. I just close my eyes and I sit in the chair and I listen to it. It's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. The one thing with it is, because like Keys during her route, she describes the story of it, and then after you listen to the concerto, she describes how she changed up the story. I mean, I know there's a dialogue option beforehand that's like, oh, is there a guide? I kind of wish I did click that, or if there was something where I can read through like the lore. You know how with music, especially with like classical music, it'll be kind of divided into sections, or like if it's following a story, it's like certain parts of the music matches with like certain parts of a story or whatever. I wish we had that, because I was interested in her story. I know it's a parallel, the story of her music, of like what she's experiencing in her route of being a hand-me-down and meeting the player, and then kind of being a diva to the other objects, and then learning how to make friends or whatever. And then she has it where she's this like goddess whose wings are broken and is guided by this magician who's described to be a fraud, and is cast down into the mortal world and is trying to find her way home. And then it gets changed to her becoming friends with the magician, and I think deciding to stay in the mortal realm or whatever. And then if you go with the romance option, she's like, oh, do you like the romantic overtones that I added into the... I mean, the theme's always the same no matter if you're on like a friendship route or a romance route or whatever, you know. But I wish I could like read through a little blurb that like guides you through it as you're listening to it, because there's parts of it that I really liked, especially that sounded very flowy and light and airy. I feel like I have to listen to it as I'm talking about it, but it is easily my favorite musical piece in the game. It's so good, and I like that you have the option to listen to it again after you finish the route. I never did, but I appreciated that. What else? I like the spooky themes too. Like Nightmares definitely felt really spooky. It was kind of interesting because you'd like finish your encounter with her, and then you have the little wake up sequence, but the music actually still lingers until there's like a little icon of like a sun and a moon or whatever that goes next to like what time of day it is or whatever, and like how many hearts you have left and stuff. And it has to, the image literally has to change from like the moon, I think, to the sun, and then her musical theme finally ends. I like that as like a horror concept, because her music is spooky and it still kind of just lingers just a little bit after you wake up. It's the feeling of like when you have a nightmare, like right before you, or like you wake up from it or something, and that fear kind of lingers within you just a little bit as you wake up, until you realize, okay, it was just a dream or whatever. Damon's, I don't remember what it sounds like off the top of my head, but it also has this kind of let me actually listen to it for a second. I've been making little videos for myself for doing my second playthrough of like character routes I liked. I made an entire video just of their routes, so I gotta listen to it and see what her theme sounds like again. Hold on. Okay, I listened to it for just a second. Halloween vibes is the vibe. Like Nightmares feels kind of unsettling and Damon's just makes me think of like video game Halloween level, but like in a good way. And I feel like that's interesting because that's the opposite way I feel about their characters. Because like Nightmare's music feels spooky, scary, and Nightmare's whole thing is trying to be scary, but I don't find her scary at all. Even her descriptions, you know, during her sequences of like the bugs crawling on you or whatever, I never felt like scared or anything, or it was like kind of a little creepy, but I never felt scared. That's just me though. And then with Damon's, it's the opposite, where it wasn't like scared, it's more, it just, the existentialism of it and just the like creepy pasta of itness of it felt like kind of creepy at times. Like, I'll be honest, the part where you get screamed about the sun was kind of spooky. And then the music just feels like Halloween vibes, you know, which always feels kind of more fun and, dare I say, relaxing to me than it should be. I don't know, that's just like a kind of thing I like. So it doesn't really come off as scary, but it's supposed to probably be scary. I don't know, or maybe just unsettling. I feel like Damon's like less like scary, like how Nightmare's supposed to be, and more just like existential. You feel kind of unsettled. It's about like throwing you off and whatever, and just being kind of weird. What else? Speaking of Damon, there's a part where you talk to them and he gives you like cut content and stuff, and one of the things you get to hear is cut music. I don't know how much cut music there is from this game, but in terms of that story route, there's like one song, or I think it's like two songs. One of them sounded like it was just the main theme of the game though, but there's like one song, and it was supposed to be like a theme for, as explained, like a theme for Titus, and then it was for Daisuke, and then it was not used for anyone. And like the musical theme they have for Titus in the game is good, and it like matches. It feels kind of like, I was gonna say like slow and steady. It has this like build up to it, or that's the feeling I get of it. The cut theme that they would have used for her is really good. I kind of prefer it because it sounds very like heroic and stuff, but I can see why they have the one that they did. But that one as a musical track, I don't know what the name of it is. That one was good. What else? Zoe's theme, I always remember because her route is one of the more depressing ones in the game, and her theme is really sad. It's sad. It has this, like, when I think about it off the top of my head, this kind of lonely feeling to it, but I feel like it fits with like the vibe of her route and her storyline and stuff. Like, she's a very like perky and fun character, but her storyline is like really depressing, and I'm glad that the music matches that vibe more than like her. I mean, not like she's like fun and happy all the time, but that I'm glad the music matches more of that than like her personality and stuff. Let me see. Jacques, I mean, I know he's supposed to, like, his name is literally supposed to be like a Captain Jack Sparrow reference. Like, even the way you read it or like pronounce it is supposed to be that way. But it does make me think of Pirates of the Caribbean, which I'm assuming has to be on purpose. But it gets me excited every time I hear it, whether I'm thinking about Pirates of the Caribbean or not. And that's good. That's how like a pirate theme should be. River and Dante's, I remember both being really chill, and I liked that. Holly's is really fun. I remember it has like bells and stuff. It sounds kind of Christmassy, which I guess makes sense because holidays and stuff. And I remember her talking about Christmas sometimes in her routes. Or like when I feel like it fits. Like she represents like all the holidays and stuff, even with her clothing. But when I think of like holiday decorations that you like store in your attic or whatever, I keep thinking about like Christmas is the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, her theme is really fun. I probably have to listen to it again. Lux's feels like something you dance at a club. It was I like that it's called Literally Amazing, and I didn't get the pun at first, and I was like, oh, it has the word lit in the name, or I'm assuming that's the joke, I don't know. And then I thought it was interesting that Parker's and Chance's themes actually sound really similar, but they both have this kind of medieval sound to it, which I guess sort of fits. Like Chance's whole thing is the D&G stuff, so that's pretty much what I expected. And Parker's being board games, I guess because it's sort of like adventure-y sounding music, and you're like, you know, board games, it's like you're immersing yourself in a world, but like in a different way than like D&D and stuff. And board games are supposed to be fun. I mean, not every board game is an adventure or whatever, so I could see how it fits. But with the concept of board games, sometimes board games are like so wacky or whatever. Like even the ones that you like play in his route, like there's the Cream Capitalist one, which makes me think of like Risk, but then you end up playing like chess. And then the first one is a game called Sandyland, where you have to like get to the beach or something, which sounds like really silly. I don't know. And then Parker is such a like weird character, very like intense, but in like a goofy way. Like Parker and Dishy are like very intense characters I almost feel kind of nervous around, but like Dishy, it's in a way of like that is a creature, you can die, and Parker, it's in a way of like this person is not sane and is very high energy. I'll talk about that more later when I get to the character describer. I know this has already been like an hour and it's like you've just mumbled about music and whatever. But yeah, I kind of wish that Parker had a more like whimsical musical theme. I don't know, that's just me, but like the music's all good. I'm very excited to listen to the rest of the soundtrack, but I'm glad that I stumbled on at least some of the songs. I keep having them pop up for me on YouTube as well. I should probably start listening to it there. My internet's just been really funky the last few days. It's just made it difficult to play the game, because then I can get on Steam and I can get on the Steam like the library for the game, but then the I kept having a problem with the cloud saves. It didn't want to sync, and I didn't test that with other Steam games, because this was the only game I played every day for like 3 hours straight at night. Was just the thing that I did for a while, or sometimes for hours during the day. I've been playing this game. This game has been like my entire summer. I'm not even kidding. Like in June I played the demo, and then I bought the game I think in like August or even like late July or whatever. I put like 50 hours in the first playthrough, and today is September 10th, so oh my gosh, tomorrow's 9/11. That's crazy. And I put a bunch of hours in the second game. Like I mentioned, I have like 100 and something hours in this game already, or probably just 100, I don't know. This game's taken up my whole summer, so I still have to keep listening to the music and such. And I've had so many videos for it pop up for me on YouTube. It's been okay. Now that I've talked about the music, I want to talk about something else actually. Of like how I've gotten like so immersed in this. It's kind of crazy. Like my regret is before I finish the game, what got me into buying the game, I was always going to buy this game, let me clarify. I bought this game at full price. I never do that on Steam. I always wait for Steam sales, that's why I don't really buy anything. But I caved in. I bought the game because I started seeing stuff pop up for it on YouTube for me, and I was like, damn, I don't want to get spoiled. I'm already so excited for this game. I'm like, fine, I'll buy it. I'm so glad I did. I put so much time into it. But then as I was playing, I remember I went on Tumblr and I was like, I'm just curious, like, what pops up. And I fell in a rabbit hole from there, and then I started reading fan fiction, and I normally don't read fan fiction for stuff. I get hyper fixated for things for like at least 2 or 3 weeks at a time or whatever, and there's very few like pieces of media or whatever where I have been like an inch away from hopping onto like AO3 or whatever and checking some out. But I don't know, I usually resist. Not that it's like a bad thing or whatever. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. I don't really use it much though, but sometimes you find a lot of weird things or whatever, and sometimes I feel like it affects the way I feel about characters after a while. But no, I did immediately, not for like every character or whatever. I remember on both AO3 and on Tumblr, actually, I found a lot of stuff related to Eddie and Volt. It's kind of interesting because in terms of like couples and stuff, when I was playing through the game the first time, I met Washford and Drysdale, and I'm like, oh, it's like old people yaoi. I bet people online I thought that was gonna be the couple that like everyone was gonna get like excited about or whatever, because they have this very like kind of drawn out route of getting them back together or whatever. And instead it was Eddie and Volt, and you know what, they're both really hot and they have a really good storyline. I should not be surprised in the slightest. It is kind of interesting whether you go in like TikTok or Tumblr or like different places, and like it's always like the same, like, I'm gonna go on a ramble here, like 6 characters or so that are popular, but like the ones who are the most popular change between like the sites you go on and stuff. Oh wait, no, to backtrack on the AO3 thing really quickly, the one character I did search for was Damon, because they ended up being my favorite, and a lot of I didn't find that many fanfics. I found maybe like 15, which isn't that bad. I thought the way they were written were really interesting, because it's like the POV of like, yeah, like dating a glitch character, what is that like? And some of the text was like really creative too, where people messed with like the spacing of stuff or whatever, like to try to make it mimic the game or to try and be kind of spooky. Like people got like really creative with it, and I loved it. And I'll probably go back on that site and I'll probably read through things, because I was having an absolute blast. I guess I'm talking about fan fiction now. I found some that were just like general things about the house or whatever. I found a really good one that was like Final Destination themed. I've never watched any of the Final Destination movies, but apparently you get murdered by furniture. And I found this fan fiction where the player character watches the movie, and the house thinks that it's like a documentary, and they're trying to protect the main character from like trying to protect the human from the objects themselves, and like getting hurt and stuff as like object forms or whatever. Or let me see, I found another one, the ones that are always kind of interesting, kind of fun to me, unless they're like angst ones, but I haven't found any of those yet, of like, what do you do if there's a home intruder because your furniture is like sentient or whatever. And a lot of the ones I find are like the objects like beat up the intruder. And sometimes in like a kind of a scary way, but it's kind of funny. I remember reading one where it was like some of the characters lead the player back to like upstairs to like chill in the bedroom while the house is being invaded, and then downstairs it is basically like Final Destination, where they're getting the shit scared out of them by the objects or whatever. And of course the intruder doesn't have the glasses, so it's just like you're getting tomatoes pelted on you and electrocuted and shit, and it was crazy. It was fun. But yeah, that was cool. But anyway, I'm mentioning about like, oh, I went on like sites and checked out fan arts and read things and whatever, because that kind of affected things that I knew about the game, and I kind of regret that I did get spoiled on like a couple of things. Thankfully I did not get spoiled on like the designs for any of the realized characters. I'm really happy about that, because a lot of those are like so cool, and like the moments when you realize a character is supposed to be like such an important thing and stuff. So I'm glad I got spoiled on. I think the big thing I got spoiled on was the stuff with Keith. I found that out pretty fast on accident. I don't remember what I read, and that was before I actually tried starting his route or anything. So then I knew that the whole time, and I went through it and I was like, yeah, I already knew he was gonna like betray me or something, but let me just like see what the story is. And then I got to a point in my first playthrough where I was like, yeah, maybe it's something bad or whatever, maybe I shouldn't, what happens then? But then, you know, eventually I realized him, and then the thing happens or whatever. But I did go through his route in my second playthrough. I do have thoughts on that I will share. You know what, maybe I'm actually gonna make that a separate video. This is already an hour. I'm gonna feel bad if this is like 3 hours and most of it is just me not really knowing what I'm doing. This one could be the like, what are my general thoughts and talking about the music and stuff, and I'll make a second one that's like, I'm gonna talk about the characters and whatever. But yeah, I was spoiled on some things, and that's entirely my fault for going on those kind of sites while I was still playing the game. That's on me. But it was also kind of fun. There's a lot of like cool fan art and stuff. A lot of it's like really horny though. So I had to like be careful while I was scrolling. And Reddit's been kind of fun too. I've been on there a lot. I like a lot of it is like people, it's funny in like the subreddits for this game, where at first when I was going through it, it was a lot of like, okay, tier lists and people's favorites, and now I'm noticing, but some of the tier lists were really funny, like or just were the ones that were different were interesting. Like there was one where someone ranked all the shoes, and once I saw that, then I was finally paying attention to the shoes that the characters wear in the game. I definitely have thoughts on the shoes. There's like some wacky ones of like, there's like sexual things. There's one where like if you took them to a theme park or whatever, or would they, one that I thought was kind of funny was if they would survive a rage room, and I thought it was like the characters with a baseball bat in a rage room, and then I realized the rage room was like the objects themselves. If they were there and you had to beat them up, would they survive? And the fact that took me a minute to realize, you know, I keep forgetting they're objects. You're gonna hear me keep saying that, but I feel like that's such an important thing with this game, and demonstrates like how human these characters feel. That makes sense. But yeah, a lot of the tier lists were cool. And now the thing is like, here's my top 10 favorite characters. What does this say about me? And I keep having to scroll past those. But the posts I do find really funny are the ones that are like the Tumblr messages, but it's like things the characters would say. A lot of those have been like really, really in character for stuff and just kind of fun. But I've been seeing less of those lately, and I'm like, aw, but they're fun to read through. They're funny. I saw one, it wasn't a text thing though, that was just, it was, I feel bad. I like almost cracked up at it, but I had my door open and there was someone in another room, and I didn't want to hear them just hear me suddenly just like laughing really loud out of nowhere. And then if I had to explain that later, I don't know how to explain the lost meme to like 6-year-old people, okay? It was the one of the guy, it's like a 4-panel comic where he goes into a hospital and he's directed by the Doctor, and then he do I still have it open on my phone? It's stupid, it worked, but it was really funny. Damn, I don't have it on my phone. Loss. Okay, I'm not gonna pause. I just need to pull this up. And it's gonna be so funny. Where? Damn it, no. Okay, I can still picture it though. It was 4 panels, and they replaced the guy with Dishy, which I don't know. I felt like that fit somehow. Also, he's human legs, so maybe that works. He's a weird guy. And at first I thought, like, why are they putting specific characters in here? And I realized some of them were like, the image was rotated. I realized, oh my gosh, they're supposed to represent the objects in the picture. Because the first panel is a picture of Dorian behind the Dishy, like you walk into the hospital, and then the second panel was Dishy in front of Penelope, and then under Penelope was Dasha, but like flipped sideways to represent the desk, and then the third panel was just Dishy and Faria, and then the fourth panel was Dishy, and then it was the person in the bed, and it was Damon to represent like the deceased person or the sick person or whatever, and then the picture was laid on top of Betty, but just the way it was all placed. And then once it clicked to me of like, oh, it's the pictures of them to represent the objects in the actual comic, that's what it was. It's so stupid, but it was really funny. Oh, I was so close to laughing out loud at that, but I held it in. Yeah, so there's a lot of like really goofy stuff, that I find, or like TikTok has been really fun too. And this is supposed to be my thoughts on the game. It's turned into me talking about like the fandom or whatever, but I don't care. The TikToks have been funny. I'm trying to think of specific ones where it's the kind of like the Vocaloid meme ones where it's like they put over audio or whatever, they're like put into silly situations where it's just like the PNGs. I don't know what that's like called, but those are pretty good. I keep thinking about one that I saw of a person on I think it's called a lyra, where it's like a big hoop and you like spin around on it and stuff and use it for like exercise and things. And I remember seeing there was like 3 TikToks of this person on that hoop thing, and it was like, how would the Datables use this object? And it was pretty cool, actually. It kind of made me want to buy one, not gonna lie. But it was a lot of the poses I feel like match with the characters. I'm still thinking about Eddie's because it was funny to me, where it was the person standing in the center of the room with their arms kind of up, and I don't know how the hell it was happening, but the hoop was rotating around the person. And I'm like, yeah, that's accurate. But yeah, the fandom stuff has been fun. I mean, it's not really stuff that I ever engage with where I make like posts or anything or whatever, but just looking through like the memes and other things. The other thing I was gonna say, I mentioned earlier there was like 5 or 6 characters that are like either universally loved or always in stuff, and I find that really interesting. And from what I can remember, or like the ones that are like, there's like the ones that are like used in everything, and there's the ones that are like a lot of people's favorites. Like I noticed Betty's a lot of people's favorites, but not used in like the memes and stuff or whatever, or in like a lot of things. I know Eddie and Volt seem to be like one of the main favorites. Either Eddie and Volt or Dorian seem to be like a lot of people's favorites. which feels weird now because all three of those actually ended up being some of my favorites too, but like for different reasons. And then Hector as well. And then the Hanks, but more in like a comedy way. They're just like the goobers. I don't remember who else. I can't think of it right now. I think Mac as well, I would see quite a bit. And then it kind of feels a little sad that and I probably have to go digging through it. And I get it, this is a game with 100 characters where there's some characters I just don't see, or a lot of them I don't see any attention on, like get mentioned or like fan art or anything, and it feels a little sad, but like I get it. But it does feel kind of weird when I started looking into things, and like three of those I mentioned that are really popular were also some of my favorites as I was playing. Well, not like immediately, or it was sometimes in the second playthrough, so that was at least nice for me, where I was like, oh, these characters I already liked, I can already find stuff for them immediately. Cool. Oh no, wait, no, the other two I'm forgetting. Chance and Parker are also a lot of people's favorites. And I didn't, for some of those I mentioned, I didn't really get the hype at first, and then as I was playing through in my second playthrough, I was like, I get it now. I get it. You're gonna hear me mention that for like quite a bit of characters as I'm giving my commentary and stuff of like, okay, they grew on me, or I get the hype, or whatever. It's gonna be interesting. Okay, I want to talk about that. It is 11 p.m. though, so, and it's already been an hour. I'm gonna, I think, finish up kind of my general thoughts of just blabbing about this, and then the rest of this, or the next video or whatever, is going to be on the characters, I promise. Okay, but yeah, I mentioned that I'm glad I did a second playthrough. I feel like I understand the characters more and stuff, and I'm glad I did the mate everything thing and getting like the extra dialogue and stuff. I don't know if I'd eventually do a friend playthrough. I feel like if I didn't touch this game for like a year or whatever, or if I just took like a break from it, eventually I could do a friend playthrough. Or maybe I'd do one where it's like I just pick the options I want. I'm not saying like with my original playthrough that I didn't do that. I was just trying to get like love or friendship, so I was trying to pick a lot of the positive things. But I just mean like I didn't pick the funny options because I was trying to do so well on the routes. That's one of the things I regret. What else? Speaking of the routes, you know, the 100 characters and everything, some of them have shorter routes than others. I think it's kind of interesting, where some just don't really have like a story or character arcs, and then some have super long ones. It's like weird the way that it's balanced. Like Lux doesn't have character development, or I remember the Tyrell's is like an extremely short route, and I remember I liked this character, and then the route's just suddenly over, and it's like, oh, okay. Or some of them are like really chill, like Koa's is just, it's like you go, you hang out, that's it. There's not like a problem for you to solve or anything. And then there's characters where it's like I did their route, and whether I liked it or not, or if I liked the character or not, I feel like I didn't really get to know them in their route, and then it just kind of leaves me where I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel. I don't know, but I mean, with like I said, for a game with so many characters, I guess that's probably bound to happen. You can't have everyone balanced, or it's like once you finish a storyline, it's like that's it. I mean, I'm glad you get to continue interacting with the object. The fact that no matter what ending you get some kind of dialogue with them if you go to see them again and stuff, or even if you're doing the physical thing where you can like ask them for a hug or whatever. I just think that's nice, because it would really suck if like you finished a route and then it's like, okay, you can never talk to this person again, they're just locked out forever, like realization or not. So that's pretty nice. It would be cool if you had more things, but like again, there's so many characters and stuff. I completely get it, and I think it's fine. it just meant that sometimes I would go around and I would chat with my favorites or whatever, even if it's just the same dialogue again. And I do like if there's like multiple versions of the same person in your house, they have different dialogue depending on like what that location is. Like Prissy's was kind of fun for that, of being like, oh, I'm in the laundry room, or oh, I'm in the kitchen, or whatever. But with my second playthrough, I'm glad that I did the characters, as I mentioned, the ones where it's like multiple in the house and you have to go find like all the different versions, or there's like a lot of characters I content skipped my first playthrough, and I decided like I want to see what their storyline is, so I did the storyline. Like I said, the only two that I didn't get to do, I skipped Benoit's, but that's just because I wasn't really interested in like the sex stuff, because not really my thing. So I didn't want to do that one. I didn't really feel comfortable with it. And then Tina's I ended up skipping because I wanted to make sure I got a love route. So I don't really know what her storyline is. But the ones that I did do, I'm glad. Not that all of the stories were like amazing or something, but it definitely gave me, of course, more context for the characters. So that's kind of part of the reason I did a second playthrough as well, was just like, okay, there's people I didn't talk to, let me go fix that, and that definitely helped. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to mention. I used guides. I used Neoseeker at the start of my second playthrough and like towards the end of my first one, and then I found a guide on Steam. It was by someone named Genpai, and it was the Mate Everything guide, and that was a lifesaver, and it was super easy to scroll through and everything, where I didn't have to like check through like YouTube videos or a route or whatever. Except there was like one character, I think it was the Rock Goddess, where the advice was wrong because I ended up getting friend zoned and I had to look through a YouTube playthrough. But other than that, that guide specifically helped me a lot. And that one specifically just for the romance route stuff, but it was nice because it would be like character name and then, okay, here's the options you click. Like Steam has a lot of good there's a lot of good routes in there, so that was really nice. Okay, I'm gonna end this here. I feel kind of bad that a lot of this video is just kind of me blabbing about whatever, but at least I wanted to talk about the music at some point, so that was good. Still to listen to it, and just actually talking about the fandom stuff was really fun. I was probably gonna do that anyway. Okay, so the next video, I gotta record that right now, is just gonna be me talking about the characters and whatever, and that's probably gonna be about it. It's funny, when I finished my first playthrough I was like, okay, that's it, I'm not gonna talk about this game again, and then I started the second playthrough and now there's this. But it's nice to give my thoughts on this game and kind of take my time talking about it, because there's just so much content. This game is so long and everything, and so many characters. Alright, so next time it is character chatting time. My notes are everywhere. It's gonna probably be a mess, but that's okay. See you then.